We all hear it? All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. If Mr. Moore would call the roll for us, please.
Carly Snell, Daniel Gray,
Here.
David Coleman,
Present.
Jim Moore, present, Ron McDaniel,
Present.
Dana Tony,
Here.
Lauren Martin,
Here.
Laura Walker,
Here.
all present.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm going to let Dr. Owa introduce our guests this evening. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you, President Gray. Good evening, everyone. President Gray charged me in finding some financial training, audit training for our board members as well as for me, so we can move forward as a team and making sure that we cover all the laws and regulations that we're supposed to. And the first person that came to mind was Dr. Procro. So he is here, Dr. Tony Procro, the Executive Director for Arkansas School Boards Association. He brought a team with him, and I'm sure he's going to introduce that. So, Dr. Procro.
Sure.
So thank you for inviting us. We always enjoy coming out to the school districts and doing training. I'm the Executive Director of the School Board Association. Before that, I've got 16 years experience as a superintendent of schools. Before that, a principal. Wasn't a coach. I taught science, English, math, different things like that. But, so I was really unqualified to be a superintendent, Dr. O. I don't know if you've ever coached or not, but if you did, you're not qualified. So I'm here today to do some training. I'm going to introduce Shannon Moore, who I will be retiring in October. Shannon will be the new improved version. She's been at ASBA for over 20 years. She does a phenomenal job there. The board had asked me who could come in and take this over, and we didn't have to look far. Shannon was there. I told everyone to cut her wrist. She believes ASBA blue. She's a lover of schools and kids, and she has integrity and character and the best work ethic that I've probably ever witnessed. So she will do a phenomenal job there. And being a superintendent of schools, as you know, I'm underqualified in so many areas. One is when it comes to coding and all the numbers that go with it. Dr. O will tell you, superintendent, we look at big picture. But then someone has to take care of all the details. For that end, Robin Keene is here. She has been a business manager. She worked for the Arkansas Education Association. She is known statewide for doing Tier 1 trainings, which is financial trainings for schools. And she is beyond just the counting the pennies. She's a visionary too. She knows big picture. She's worked on up to $100 million budget. I don't know the budget you have now, maybe over $100 million. Over $100 million budgets, as you probably have big budgets here. So she is here. So I've got some good help with me in case you have questions, something that we can't answer. Here, I'll refer to one of them. If they can't get it, we'll try to get the answer from somewhere. One thing I would like to say, I thank you so much for the heartfelt welcome that I felt coming into this room. I felt good personalities. I felt a good chemistry with this board. And that is evident from what I've been hearing with other people who have visited your district, what we have seen reported out from this district since the break from Pulaski County coming to this situation. And it's all about leadership. And I know that you get a hit in the paper every once in a while, and they just got one. But the other thing I would tell you, the only people that don't get hit in the paper are those that are doing nothing and not moving forward. Bad publicity sells, so you're going to get some of that. We just learn from it, we move forward, and try to keep doing the best that we can. So we're going to talk here about audit. We do all kinds of presentations. If you need to come back at some point and get delved down into the finance on where money comes from, how it works in your district, where it goes, that gets beyond audit. We can do that sometime if you so need. You probably already got a good familiarity with that anyway. If you ever need us for that, we can do that. Today we're here to talk about audit. I'm not an auditor. I'm not a CPA. I don't have a business degree, but I've probably been through 40, 50 audits of different kinds in my lifetime. It's never a pleasant thing, but I'm not an expert in it, and I'm not from legislative audit. So we're not an authority. We're just trainers is what we are here today. We're gonna talk about how to read your school's audit report and the pieces that go into that. By law, you have to have someone who is doing this training to approve the materials and work through that. So we worked through materials and we went to Freeman Wish, who is a CPA, business manager, district treasurer at Clarksville School District, who has also done school audits. And then Michael Cobb is a CPA, also does school audits. Those two looked at this, tweaked it, checked for accuracy, watched our initial trainings, gave us the green light and said, you're okay to proceed forward. Audit training requirement is there for all school board members. This is the annotated code. It must be received by December 31st of the year after being elected. There is no hourly requirement. It just says you've got to receive audit training. We always include this in our new board member workshop. So anytime a new board member comes on, that requirement is knocked out. You just got to get it in that first year to year and a half, 31st, the year after you're elected. There's no requirement after the initial training. However, we tell people it's good at least every few years to get retrained because laws change. We have hundreds of laws that are passed each legislative session, sometimes even in the fiscal session. We had a major rule change this last fiscal session that impacted purchasing. So it's something that administrators have to keep abreast of, but it's also something every once in a while for a board to get in, to get some more training. One thing I would like to say as we start going into this, the view at ASBA is the board is there. You're having to make recommendations are being made to you. You're voting on millions of dollars. Sometimes it's minimal amounts that you're voting on through a budget, but your job is to hire the very best people that you can. Try to be ethical about it, but the key is your administrative team. The board can't come in through there. I can remember years ago, they used to look at check registers. Hopefully this district does not look at a check register. That would take days and weeks, because I would guess that there's probably thousands of checks written, maybe in a week, for sure in a month. But people can understand that. It was written to Ace Hardware, it was written to CCI Book Company, whatever it was. It's easy to look at that. The big picture, though, is what the board is there for, to look at everything else. However, it doesn't keep you from it coming out in the paper when something is not done correctly. You're there to make sure from that point forward, are we on the right track? What happened? How do we move forward? So we strongly suggest subsequent training. What is an audit? Love Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown's always got a sigh, he's always got a worry. An audit is the process by which an independent accountant reviews your financial records and procedures in order to express an opinion on the fair presentation of your financial statements. It's not designed to detect fraud. However, sometimes audit is informed, legislative audit, when there are smoke signals. Usually it's something involving fraud, theft, someone stealing from the concession stand, whatever it may be. Then audit may get called in if there's suspicion of that and they think there's enough material evidence there that would have an impromptu audit. But all districts are audited from year to year, either by the state or by a private auditor, which the board can so choose, for the previous year is what takes place. It's not designed to make your life miserable. So in most cases, board members get the audit. It doesn't make your life miserable. I can promise you it usually makes your financial office miserable most years. I can remember as a superintendent, one particular year, we had an auditor that came in September, stayed until May. She was there. She not worked in the same district. Came back in June for that 1 year audit. We were there that long with an office, sitting right there. So it can vary quite a bit. What did I have to see anywhere? So what do auditors do? They plan the audit. For legislative auditors, it's real easy. They're doing the same thing. They're looking for the same thing in school after school after school. That division of several auditors there, some go and do cities, some go and do counties. Specific ones are designed to come to the school districts. There's 235 school districts. I couldn't give you an accurate count, but I would say there's probably 40, 50 out there. Robert, you may have more accurate information than that probably do private audit. That still leaves 175 or so school districts every year that they're on a cyclic basis. And usually you have an auditor from legislative audit that comes and gets an area and stays in an area for quite some time. I can tell you that builds familiarity. It builds just knowing. I don't even have to say things, and my wife knows what I'm going to say. And the same thing vice versa with her. It gets that way with an auditor. You know what they're going to be looking for. You know what they need. They know you. They get to know your personality, your character, and that makes life easier. And then all of a sudden you have an auditor switch. That's a whole new thing. It's like going on a new date. You got to learn a new person. What are they looking for? What's taking place? So that's what they do. They plan that audit coming out to your district. They test the accounting records that you have in place. They're checking balances. They're checking were these numbers there correctly. They verify those balances, and then they prepare the audit report. After they get all that information, I can tell you that they gather information. Some of it is through electronic, others through paper products that you may have, where you're approving bids and wanting to look at bids, things of that nature. But they're always looking at that stuff. And usually, after they get a lot of information, they'll take it, they'll look at it. Usually you have one place you're set up for them when they come here, Dr. Owen. They come back to the business department again. We need these additional forms. We need this additional information. So it can be a very long process. Ms. King, any time that you want to interject and say something, I want to make sure we get everything that we have here. She's a guest for us here today, but I was pleased that she did take the invitation to show up. So correct me, add to whatever you feel free to do. Why do we have an audit? It's required by state law. That is in annotated code. It's required by federal law. So when they're auditing local money, state money, and federal money. It's required by bonding companies. When you have some type of a bond that you pass, those are required at the school district to make sure that you're financially stable to be able to continue to pay those bonds. Citizens like them. Why would citizens like them? Well, I can tell you right now that if you talk to any citizen out here, they pay Dr. Ola's salary. And every employee that's up here, and they pay for the lights. They want to make sure that their money is taken care of. And that's the job of the administration and of the school board to make sure that tax dollars are being spent wisely and with integrity. Evaluation of the performance of management. How well are you and your team performing the fiduciary responsibilities that are required by law? There is a district responsibility in the audit. They don't just show up. The audit does prepare the report. The district is responsible for the preparation of the financial statements. They're going to come, and this is what we want to get from you. Someone has to do that work. The district needs to designate a qualified individual to be responsible for the oversight of the financial statements for the auditor, usually the business manager or the superintendent. I don't know of hardly any district, Robin. You may know some where the superintendent is the one who does this. The superintendent, in most cases, is getting reports from the business managers. So why would it go through the superintendent? It usually comes direct to that business manager because of financial reports that are needed. The auditors to report how fair the financial statements are presented and to what extent the district complied with laws and regulations. I brought a law book. These are just school laws. You see the fine print? So all of those things are there, must be adhered to strictly. And that's what the auditors are to make sure. And as the new laws come on the book, very few are strict. Probably could have gone 40 years and this book might have been that big. I know it would have been probably much bigger. I've got law books from 2000, 2001, and they're half this size. So laws get added every year. The print gets smaller and the pages keep adding up. But they're there to make sure that those laws are being followed. These are the pieces of the auditor's report. First is the independent auditor's report. It just basically says, this is what we're doing. This is you can just follow in your handouts as we go through here if you want to make notes. what they're doing, what system they're using, and what they're going to be looking for. Report on internal control. They don't do this like they used to years ago. They used to give an opinion on internal control. And we always got zapped whenever I was the principal superintendent for what? Segregation of duties. And everyone in the state would always, so a few years back, they made a change on that where they quit giving an opinion on that. Because how do you ever have enough people to count the money to make sure that something's not wrong? You count gate receipts. Someone takes the money up. They count it. They turn it into the secretary's office. The secretary counts it. It goes from there to someone in the central office. They count it. The business manager is ultimately responsible, and so the superintendent. I used to get that segregation of duties. That's internal control. Are you counting the money? Are you doing everything correctly? I used to get hit every year with that. That would always be on the letter that we would get on the audit. We got to ask him, how many people? Tell him, do I need to hire 5 more, 10 more? Because it was always, you got to have enough people. What's the number? They quit having an opinion on that because there can never be a number. It's basically, it doesn't matter if you got 100 people, you can still make a mistake. The law of averages is not for you, but it could still happen. There's a report on compliance, management letter. I'm going to go into more detail a little bit later. A balance sheet. We all know what balance sheets. Balance sheets, same thing as the bottom line of your checkbooks. Statement of revenue and expenditures. How much money you have coming in, how much money is going out. Budget to actual. Every year you approve a budget. How closely are your actual expenditures and revenue compared to your budget? What does that look like? Notes to financial statements, and then a lot of supplemental information. I try to make this as interesting as possible. But I was telling Robin earlier, this is probably the one that is the most dullest presentation that you can give because it's about facts, figures, and auditors, what they're looking for. What is internal control? We just said there's no longer an opinion on internal control. But they can find material weaknesses in internal control. So they're not going to give you an opinion, no, you don't have enough people counting, segregation duties is not good enough. But if the gate receipts aren't matching from the time that it was counted at the gate with the figure that was turned in to the time that it got counted in the business office, you got a problem with internal control. Now, your internal control can be good on one thing, is that you caught the mistake. You go back. But was it explained? Was it a miscounting? And is that a repetitive issue? That's part of internal control. It references financial items throughout the course of the school year. A report on compliance. Really, they're looking at most cases here with federal programs. There's not an opinion on compliance, but once again, they are going to look for financial statements, facts and figures, everything to balance out and match up. Here is the one, we ought to have this in red, lightning flashes coming through it. The management letter. You may or may not have a management letter attached to your audit report. Not having a management letter is a good thing. Everyone calls that a clean audit. You got a good, clean audit. There's nothing there in the management letter that's come to you. It's intended for use by legislative audit committee, local school board, district management, ADE, and federal and regulatory agencies. It details any violations of federal and state laws. It's still a part of the public audit report. It's out there for everyone to see. Now, the management letter. The management letter may not be anything. There may be things documented in there that's a coding issue. People make mistakes. And if mistakes are there, the management letter can report that. It might be that there's fraud there. If there's fraud there or theft, it's going to get beyond the school board real quick because then you're going to have another entity in the Board of Law Enforcement that's going to be looking at that and seeing the prosecution's needed. The one thing that I want to say here, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. And I would dare say a lot of people in this room made mistakes. I only know of one person that walked the earth that was perfect, and it sure ain't me. So people can make mistakes, but are the same people making the same mistakes, and are the same kind of mistakes being made year after year, time after time? That's when it starts becoming something that you've got to really worry about. It's a one-time thing, flares up, we could have done better on that. Let's take care of that. Look and see if it happens next year. Are you starting to take care of those things? It's used by the Legislative Audit Committee. When you get that, they take that and they may call you as a district sometimes to come and justify because there's some concerns there. Other times, the school district just goes to say, hey, we want to do some explanation here, or we want to show you that we have a corrective action plan that's going to take care of this, to give you a little bit of a good feeling about where we are and about the rarity of this ever happening again. The balance sheet is going to show your assets, cash, investments, accounts receivable, the things that you own, the liabilities, accounts payable that are out there. And also it's going to show the designated fund balances and undesignated fund balances. Basically what you have on hand. Statement of revenue and expenditures is something that they're going to look at. It is revenues like property taxes, state foundation funding, and other revenues. Some people have lands that are mineral rights that you get in lieu of taxes. There's other kinds of things that come into the districts besides these main categories. Expenditures, salaries, benefits, it's all expenditures, and they're shown by programs. As you well know, salaries and benefits take up the vast majority of what it takes to run a school district. People is what it takes. Even more so than the building payments and things that you have to make. Your teachers, your administrators, your custodians, those are the most valuable asset of your school district, and it shows in your expenditures. It shows excessive revenues over or under expenditures, or under expenditures. How are you doing? Did you estimate high enough with your revenue to cover your expenditures? As a general rule of thumb, most school districts, Rob and I would sit down and look, we would fudge. We wanted to be conservative. You don't get your checkbook at the end of the month, I've got 3 cents left, I'm in great shape. You want to have enough to take care of that catastrophe. So most people try to budget a little bit conservatively so they for sure have enough money at the end to take care of unforeseen circumstances, especially since they passed the new law several years ago that you can only carry 20% over from year to year of what your revenue is. So that really made a difference. I can remember that when I first started as a superintendent, we wanted to carry at least 50%. I was in a very small district. We had $4 million budget. We wanted $2 million to carry over because in those years, we got cuts from the state. That hasn't happened in a long time, but we got our foundation funding at the beginning, and then we got cut, and we got cut 3 times that year. And if we had not been conservative and didn't have balances, we'd have probably gone under. So, but it doesn't make sense when legislators look at fund balances. You're sitting there with a $100 million fund balance, and you've got $75 million in the bank, and people wonder why you need to pass a millage. Why are you coming to us wanting more foundation funding if you've got that kind of money in the bank? So they passed the law where you can only carry 20% over. Now, in all honesty, a lot of people will take that money and put it in another fund, unrestricted building fund or something else that's not part of those operational fund balances. And there's a reason for that too. A lot of districts will try to put money in unrestricted building funds so they don't have to ask for millage increases. And every district is different. I know of some very, very wealthy districts that have low millage rates, and every kid has got a computer, and the buildings look like Taj Mahal, and teachers are paid at a very high level. It's about growth and assessment. Other districts are in areas where their millage is high, and they're still struggling because of the assessment that is there and because of the student populations. So there's not a cookie cutter formula for districts. You can take categories of districts. I had someone tell me one time when I first started as a superintendent, I said, tell me the basics of school finance. If you had to put it in a nutshell, they said this, and you can relate this to your district. If you're growing in your district at a good rate every year, percentage-wise, 2, 3, 4, 5%, you're probably a financial wizard. Everybody's going to think you are. If you're just staying flat on student population, you're a pretty good administrator. You're keep the salaries up, things are going pretty good. If you're losing kids, you better really be a whiz of an administrator and financial person, or you better have a good resume and a suitcase to go somewhere else. And that is absolutely true. I've watched this for 30 years. It is tough when a district is losing kids. You can never catch up. Even with student loss funding, it is difficult. So those districts they're handicapped as opposed to districts that are having that growth every year. When you're growing, you're getting the money and you're getting growth funding. And your assessment's going up. There's so many things that are taking place that are positive. They're going to look at your beginning fund balance and your end fund balance, which is a big thing. If they see that over a 2 or 3 year period that you are not going to have enough money to pay, they will put you in fiscal distress. So you've got to always make sure that you're staying ahead of the game and that you've got a plan moving forward. Budget to actual. It's a comparison of current year's budget amounts to actual revenue and expenditures. We've talked about this before. And you want to fudge a little at times if you want to be conservative, but you have to be realistic. You have to still be realistic. Yes.
Thing that was new this year with the department is now when they do their budget review and their approval of the budget, they are giving information showing the budget to actual. That's never been done until the last year or so.
Everyone hear that? Yeah, so that's a department change in the way that they're looking at this. So I look at that and I see once again, they're wanting us to be better stewards of taxpayer dollars. They're wanting us to be realistic because some districts really get out there very far. I mean, they should realistically expect $100 million of revenue and they'll put $175 million. And then at the end of the day, they're hurting. Or vice versa. They expect $100 million revenue and they put 50, knowing they're going to get 100. That's not budgeting. That's exaggerating to a great degree. Thank you for that. And they're also going to then look at your property taxes, your state foundation funding, other revenue. They're going to look at expenditures by programs, and they're going to look at the variance in that. Then you've got notes to financial statements. Robin, you're welcome to jump in here anytime on this stuff. I'm not even going to cover a lot of this stuff because these are just the notes that they're adding. Lots of facts and figures. So I'm going to just hit some highlights of this, skip some of it. I've given you every bit of this whole report, but I want to get to some of the tier training, which actually gets into some of the laws and the things you need to be looking for to board. These are all the things that are in the notes at the end. This is the summary of significant county policies. You see all the boxes that they're looking for. Robin, if you see something that stands out that they really need to pay attention to, let me know. So that's one piece of this. Cash deposits. It's a summary of cash deposits and a comparison of carrying amount and the amount of bank collateralization. I can remember, Robin shakes her head, we've been through a lot together. I was superintendent of Benton and she was the CFO there in that district. There was one year where we had a bank that was supposed to carry enough collateralization and the bank dropped the ball. We were assured it was going to take place. You remember this, Robin, when I talk about this? And they did not. So we just got a supplemental finding. It wasn't a management letter. But that year there were like 50 districts, the same thing that happened. The banks weren't doing it. I think that's been remedied. But you still have to make sure that whatever you have in the bank, that it's collateralized. Yes.
That, you're passing a millage or something like that, you're going to get a huge amount of your bonds, is making sure you notify your bank too that it has to be collateralized. And then June 30th, making sure that you have that collateralization statement on hand for your auditors.
Basically, that's just insurance to show that if something was to happen, being collateralized, that if something was to happen, you're going to be covered. These are the different pieces of accounts receivable that they're going to look at, federal agencies, state agencies, and then others. They're gonna look at commitments that the district has. They're gonna make sure that the revenue coming in is gonna match what you know a year from now, 3 years from now, 20 years from now. Are you on a line to be able, and a path to be able to make those commitments come true? We're gonna look at long-term debt, list all bonds of the districts that you may have. That's for your bonds for your building programs and others. List the next 5 years of principal and interest payments due. You may have all kinds of different kinds of operating leases that are there, construction contracts. So they're gonna look at a snapshot of 5 years, and I can tell you the auditors, when they come, they're looking even beyond that. They're looking at that trend data to see where you're gonna be even 20 years from now. Because most time when you get a bond, they still at about 25 years or so, Robin, some of it at 20. Is it 30 the max? 30 is the max, so it'll vary. So that's a long time, and it's hard to predict that far in advance, but they will look a ways out. Accounts payable. This section discloses information about the accounts payable of the district as of the balance sheet date that they're looking at. That's what Robin was talking about earlier. This will usually only contain vendor payables, but other items could be included. They're going to look at transfers from your operating fund into your debt service fund, into other funds. Did you code? This is why I bring Robin here, because you got specific questions. That's our world. That coding is so important to make sure that you're tracking those funds appropriately.
We had a finding on ours as far as the debt payment was coded to interest instead of principal, and then we corrected it, but it was still labeled in the audit. I guess the audit was what found that happened, or?
So that's what they found at the time. They're going to report what they found, not what you did to correct it.
Right.
You know, and once again, there's no money missing. It's a coding issue is what it was. Anything more on that? I don't know how many funds and codes are through a business office in a school district this size. You're a fairly large school district that happens in the course of the day. Hundreds of codes in the course of the day. The main thing is though, on those big funds, that probably wasn't a $6 thing. That was a big amount. So auditors, that's over $1 million. So you gotta make sure that code's right,
Right.
okay? Yeah.
That's where it comes in. It's very important that you're looking at your budget to actuals. But even if you budgeted it incorrectly, going back and comparing it to previous years. And so that's why that's very important. That's done regularly.
So if there's a coding issue, what was there the year before that, something should trigger and say, hey, that doesn't add up. Retirement plan. Of course, in Arkansas, for school districts, the retirement plan is the Arkansas Teacher Retirement Plan. When they audit other entities, for instance, in our association, we have 2 different retirement plans, so they will audit both of them. But for school districts, unless the school district wants to come up with something they want to do on the side, you know, and I don't know if that's legal even. I've never heard of that because you put everything you can. Teacher retirement is one of the best things that's out there, I will promise you that. I mean, when you think about it, what other entity, teacher retirement puts in 15% of your salary from the school district. The school district pays 15% to the teacher retirement fund. The employee pays 7%. That's nearly a quarter, 22% of the money that you make that year match is going into the retirement account. So teachers that are working, that's why they've got to work till they get to that end, especially if you've got 10, 15 years, because there's too much there to turn away. And as bad as the working conditions and everything else can be for teachers, at the end of the day, the retirement plan, it's not perfect. I wish it was better, but it's still so much better than other plans. And I can promise you that the Arkansas Teacher Retirement Plan, we've been compared to other states, we have a strong, solid, diversified retirement plan. This risk management section, it discloses information concerning various insurance policies and coverage of the district. Common disclosures are property coverage. The two main ones in the state are ASBA Risk Management, that is our association. Shannon Moore is the one who created that, I think I could say. She for sure grew it from nothing into something. Over 80% of the districts now are in the program that we have. The Arkansas Insurance Department with the state is the other. They've got all but one or two other districts in theirs. So we've got, I think last time, 178 or so districts. We have 235, they'll have another 40, 50 or so, 50 something, and then one or two go to some other entities that are out there. I can tell you that the property coverage in Arkansas, even though the rates have gone up, is so good because we're not Allstate, we're not Farm Bureau or Prudential or some other. We don't have stockholders. Shannon can tell you that she takes it, she runs it tight. It's a service for school districts. Other states that I've looked at their budgets. I said, we've got the same number of employees, we've got about the same school districts. Why is your budget twice my budget? And we get to looking, because I'm always looking to try to get new ideas. It's because of property insurance and workers' comp insurance. They're taking whatever it costs, and then they're doubling or tripling that and making money off of it. We don't make money of it. We don't have stockholders. We keep just enough there for a catastrophic issue if something was to happen. And then if it got really bad, they would rely on ASBA balances to carry this through. So it's a service for school districts. That's why it's so tight. That's why people can't go out there. Shannon, what does it cost to insure a bus under the vehicle program right now? A year.
About $500 a year.
You think about that. We insure a bus for $500, a 72 5-passenger bus with a bus driver on it, 100 feet long plus, with 75 kids on there, just waiting for something to happen. You know, I mean, can you imagine the liability of that? If you had to go to the Farm Bureau and say, this is what we want to insure, they say, what? Think about your car insurance. I wish my car insurance. I've asked her, Shannon, can I get my car insured through your program?
And he really has.
Yeah.
He really
Man, I
has.
paid, 3 times that for car insurance. Can you what's up with this? It's just for schools.
And I'll stay on top of that from our district. The turnaround and the customer service has been excellent.
That's what they pride themselves on. So that department is 3 people. And parts of 1 or 2 other, part of our business manager, a little bit of me and some others, but 3 people run that. Other states, for the size that she would have 25, 30 people. Can you imagine the number of wrecks, claims that are taking place and they're processing? So it's tight. I had to brag there. That's who's replacing me, okay? When she comes up, that's the kind of ship she runs, which is why it was an easy choice to look for someone to run our association. Subsequent events. This section discloses information about events that occurred after the balance sheet date, the date of financial audit, and the date of the issuance of the audit report. So let's say they come now, or let's say usually most of those reports are coming in after Christmas season over there. Say they're coming in, say March. So in March of 24 that just passed, they were auditing from 22 to 23, June of 22, July of 22 to June of 23. Well, this is March of 24. It's been 9 months. They're looking at the end date of June of 23, but have you gotten into another big contract since then? They're going to look at that because they don't want to wait another year for this thing to blow up. So this is what that covers. They're going to look a little bit. It uncovers at the big stuff to see is there anything out there that might be cause for concern. There's other items that might be in there. Contingency of lawsuits. Do you have a big lawsuit that's against your district? Consolidation issues. Are you losing kids and there's been talks? And usually that's going to be in the paper. It's not going to be very hard to find out about a lawsuit or a consolidation issue. Fiscal distress issues. They're going to look at that. Are you currently about to go into fiscal distress? Are you in fiscal distress? Academic distress issues. School districts are being taken over as much more frequently right now for academic stress as they are for physical. Any item that may have a potential adverse effect on the district is in this report. We're gonna, this, supplement information on capital assets. They're gonna look at what the properties that the district owns and other capital assets. One other thing about the insurance program, if my house gets blown away tonight, I get paid back what I'm insured for. Are you that way in your homes? With ASBA insurance, it's replacement costs. So you're insured for a house for $250,000, but there's been something, metal's gone up, whatever's gone up, and now it's actually gonna cost $400,000 to put that house back in. Currently under ASBA, we're gonna pay whatever it takes to get those kids back in the school, back at least the point to where it was before the catastrophic event. Federal programs, these are the federal programs, Child Nutrition, Title I, Special Education, ARA funds, that's something more recent that everybody knows about that works within those programs. Then you've got supplementary information findings and questions cost, and they've got 4 different sections of that. These are some of the comparisons of findings over the last 10 years. We picked 8 years. In 2000, the number one thing was fixed asset findings, accounting records, employee records and payments, uncollateralized bank accounts. You don't have enough insurance on the money that you have. You see those things there. So now let's look at June 30th. Theft, criminal activity. Wow, that tells about the world that we're living in. That's one of the findings that they're finding more often. Unallowable costs. Lack of bond reconciliations. Expenditures charged to the program not included in the approved budget, going outside the budget. Lack of supporting documentation for expenditures. I can tell you that I breathed a sigh of relief, and I didn't know how to act when I came from a superintendent of schools to the School Board Association. We're not a state agency, we're a nonprofit. We're like a business that's there. So when I would come in, I had to make sure that when I turned in a meal receipt, sometimes it would be intricate with everything there, making sure date, location, amount. You couldn't tip. Back whenever I was coming, I think you can do a little tip now. You couldn't tip, so you had to make sure you paid that out of your pocket. Now, you just turn in a receipt. One receipt, and you're good. The difference between the regulatory authority that is placed on you through the audit versus what we have. They want everything to balance there, but we don't have all the laws, rules, and regulations that you do in school districts. These are some actual activity audit fundings around the state. So this will make you feel better, okay? About usually anyone that's had an audit or anything, the most recent audit. The district administration reported we verified missing funds related to a school fundraiser. Our review revealed that activity funds totaling $2,671 were not deposited in the district bank account. An alternative learning environment teacher subsequently acknowledged misappropriating these funds for personal use. There's a different word for that, I think. Misappropriating these funds for personal use. What's that called? Theft or stealing. So that's the language that's there. Like I said, 17 years as a superintendent, I asked an auditor one time, and this was a great auditor that we had. I said, how can we assure that they're not doing it? That people aren't stealing? Because we don't want to, I don't want to be around a thief. I don't want them working for the district. I don't want them handling taxpayer dollars. Is there anything we can do? And he said this, he said, a dishonest person who wants to steal will do it. They're going to, even if the odds of them getting catch, you just got to make sure to have every practice that you can in place so that eventually you'll catch them before it gets too large. Because if you're dishonest, the same thing with a liar. People are going to lie. If you're a liar, you're going to lie. Even when you get caught, you're going to continue to do it. And it's the same thing with this. They caught it at 2,670. That's not a travesty. What if that had been 260,000 or 2 million? That's when it would have been catastrophic. Here's another audit finding. The district expended funds from the operating and general activity funds from July 1 of 18 through November 12th of 2019 for the following non-business purposes in conflict with these statutes. $700 for Chamber of Commerce membership dues, $400 for meals purchased from a Rotary Club fundraiser for Board of Education staff members and member staff. Now, you look at this on face value, some of that stuff, you think, why? There's different laws regarding school districts as it is for personal use. So I go way back. I became a superintendent. I was hired at 29. I don't know what the district was thinking. It started when I was 30 years of age. For the first 3 years that we were there, it was a district practice every year. Some of you will think back, maybe you were in school, you thought about this. All of the staff members, from the bus drivers and cooks up to the principals, and even the board that was there, all got a Christmas turkey. You ever got your Christmas turkey yet? Somebody's eating. Can't do that anymore because there's a law that says district funds that are coming from taxpayer dollars can only be meant for district use. And that turkey is not for district use. You could have given a bonus to the whole staff of 20 times that amount. And the board voted on it. You can't vote to give turkeys. Okay? Just can't do that. During the examination of high school receipts, the following was noted. Receipts were not always deposited in a timely manner. That is a big thing. That's just something that you've got to work on. You get the receipt on a Friday night ball game. You've got the weekend. You hope it gets deposited on Monday. And Tuesday and Wednesday rolls along. You can do that with your own personal accounts, but as quickly as you can. A lot of school districts now are taking money the night of the game and doing some type of deposit in there. Here's another one, credit cards. Credit cards, I can remember when credit cards first became used. I'm dating myself. Schools didn't have credit cards. And I remember when they come in, I said, oh Lord, the heavens are going to rain down upon us because of credit cards. I was worried to death because people use credit cards and don't pick up receipts. If you pay out of your own pocket, you're going to make sure you get a receipt for that reimbursement. So this is what happened in this district. And credit cards are now necessary. I mean, that's just the way the world rolls now. Credit card transactions totaling $69,087 indicated the following. So out of $69,000 that they audited, these are things they found that didn't add up. $3,298 paid for purchases that were not properly approved. So a teacher bought supplies that they didn't have a PO, that the principal didn't give them or whoever. Or whatever, it could be anything. $908 paid for undocumented purchases consisting of $508 for hotel charges. Now, I don't know how you wouldn't get that because you would think you could call back to a hotel and get it. But if it's not there when they're auditing, you can't pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I need a receipt. We had so-and-so there. They're going to give us a receipt. You could go back to legislative audit later on and show it to them. But at that point, when they were sitting down with the business manager, whoever was in charge, CFO, it wasn't there. $117 for meals, $30 for transportation services charges and parking fees, $253 for undetermined purposes. $587 for meals without a documented business purpose. So, where's the agenda? Where did you go? Where does it show when you got there, when you came back? Why did you have these? $604 for meals without overnight travel in conflict with the district travel policy. So this last one, that would not have been an audit finding, except the district had a policy that was more restrictive than what the state law was. Fixed assets and inventory control. The district could not account for 8 of 22 child nutrition equipment items, totaling $18,999. So 22 child nutrition items, cafeteria, supplies, equipment. 8 of those were not there and could not be accounted for. Additionally, one audit year equipment purchases for $13,871 was not recorded in the district's equipment subsidiary ledger. A similar finding was reported in the previous audit. That's a red flag. It's happened last year, it's happened this year. I can promise you it better not happen the third year. The district could not account for 8 equipment items purchased in prior years with an original value of $17,803 and a book value of $1,644. The total number of equipment items tested for inspection was 15, with an original cost of $43,798 and a book value of $14,269. So, does this have a pointer? So this is what was audited, and that was what's questioned. And this was the value, and that was the value there. So of that amount was a worry. Then you got supplemental information selected for the last 5 years. We talked about that looking forward. The audit report is due no later than 9 months after the close of the fiscal year, the end of March. They can get extensions, and sometimes it's later than the end of March when legislative audit gets closed. Unless the district uses a private auditor, legislative audit schedules the time frame of the audit. They will call. How long time do they do now, Robin, usually when they clear your district?
I just talked to the auditor probably about 6 weeks before they come in.
The week before,
They give us about 6 weeks.
6 weeks notice, 6 weeks now. So you got a month and a half. That's pretty good. It'd be tough if you're in the middle of something. But once again, you can't time it. I can tell you that in the business office, there's seasons where a hectic frenzy. So you just hope it's not during that time when they're coming. Audit reports have to be reviewed by the board of directors at the first regular board meeting after the audit is received. And appropriate action must be taken. So the audit is received when it gets handed off, and then you've got to schedule that for the next meeting.
What is appropriate action must be taken? What does that mean?
The board just has to review it and show that they have received it. It's documented in the minutes. We'll get a little bit more about corrective action planning. If there's a management letter, it goes beyond that. So here we get into corrective action plan. If you get a management letter, and if it's an instance of non-compliance with federal laws or regulations, that an appropriate corrective action plan is implemented within 6 months after the receipt of the audit report. Usually that is put in place within a month, sometimes a week, depending on the gravity and the research that the district does. You don't wait 6 months. You want to get on that quick. And why would you want to get on it quick? So if it's March, it would be April, May, June, July, August, September. You don't want to wait till September to start looking at it because you're going to be audited next year. That next year starts July 1. You sure want to have it in place for that next fiscal year starts. To ensure compliance with federal and state requirements, the corrective action plan shall be filed with the ADE Financial Accountability Reporting Unit. The CAP shall include a statement of the findings, the specific corrective actions to be taken to remedy these findings. So what happened, what did they report, and how are we going to correct that? The person responsible, they don't want to know that you're just going to do it, who's going to do it, and the timeline for the completion of the corrective action. How long is it going to take to get it in place? A specific explanation of the district's rebuttal to the finding, if appropriate. So if there's instances to where when they came, this was a snapshot, but now we have got other documentation, we've got other things that are here, so it could be a rebuttal if you so desire for that. It's not going to change the audit report, but it will get you in compliance then with that legislative audit as they're looking at it, correct? Because I've never known them to change the audit report. It stands as is.
Dr. Further, with number 2, with the corrective actions, how detailed are we supposed to be with the corrective action plan? Because, on the audit, on the report we get, there's recommendations. And in the past, we stated as a district, we're going to implement the recommendations, but not outline detail by detail about what we put in place. So how detailed do we need to be on the corrective action?
So a lot of districts that I've seen put in a corrective action plan, the recommendations will be fairly broad. When you take that as a district, you're gonna get more detail with some kind of a procedure that you're using. That's a district option. You can include those procedures you're putting in place with that if you so desire. I don't know if that's required.
I think, also your auditors may be able to help you with that. They won't write it for you, but they could give you some guidance on how broad or how narrow they want you to regulate.
And that would depend from auditor to auditor.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That would depend on from auditor to auditor. Because everyone's human, they're all different, they look at it differently. They look at their jobs different, they look at the procedures different, everything.
You know, Doctor, I remember looking at some audit findings, in legislative audit, we get very particular, like the business manager had to meet with the principals and the principals had to meet with the teachers. And so I guess it really depends on your auditor too.
Here's what I would say, Dr. O, in addition to what she said. If you're gonna go before the legislative audit committee, you're gonna wanna know the answer to any questions they're gonna ask. So when you say you're gonna put in corrective procedures for the gate receipts at such level, you can ask, what's that gonna look like? You wanna be, even if it's not there, you wanna be able to respond, well, this is what we're gonna do. When the money comes in, it's gonna be deposited here. We're gonna make sure that each time after it's deposited, the lid is shut on it. I mean, that you get that specific. That whenever the end of the night is over, that the principal is gonna come in, or another third party is gonna come in, is gonna do all the counting. We're gonna make sure that it's correct, because we're gonna put a camera in the concession stand to make sure, to just let people, keep people safe, and also to make sure that we're taking care of taxes. You can get this deep, but I would want to know if a legislator is questioning me at the end of that table, because that's who it is, I would want to be able to say, this is specifically what we're gonna be able to do. That's a good question. And you don't have to give a rebuttal, but a rebuttal can be, this is what we got, and the finding that here's more evidence, or here's more explanation about what took place.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we heard from their first meeting. You know, they were, our corrective actions were a little generic, and we heard those comments, and I think we resubmitted after we met and redid those with a little more detail and a little bit of rebuttal on some of the items and a little more explanation. We held a school board meeting or a workshop, if you will, and went over that plan and then talked about in detail some of those findings for the public to hear some of the explanations, and just thought that was the appropriate thing to do. That's why we're doing what we're doing tonight,
Right?
to try to show that,
I would have that,
this
I
is
have that in my
important.
record place, that the boards receive training, administration receive training.
Yeah.
So. But once again, the one thing that I would say, if you do it long enough, and even if you're doing it your best, that doesn't guarantee that you're not going to see a finding in management later. There's so many things. Think about the laws that get passed, and all of those laws that are getting passed, and you got to make sure that you're doing it. That's why the tier one training is so important that administrators, we're going to go into that. We're not going to get too far down in the weeds, but administrators, former superintendent and business manager, all have to do tier one training. And then you've got tier two training for all those that work in the business office and those that are handling monies to make sure they're doing things correctly. So you've got to rely on that and hope that all that's working correctly. But then you've got personnel changes. Sometimes you're hiring people that come in that haven't even gone through the tier training, and they come in and now you have to do catch up with it. So it's not a perfect system, and there's going to be mistakes. 3 years ago, I made a mistake in my checkbook. I did not dot the I across the T, but I didn't get in the paper, and I didn't get slagged out in front of everybody. So it's just the difference. If you ever want to look at you got the sheet, listen, if you want to look at prior year audit findings for your district, you can go back to this website, Top Neighbor District, and you can pull up previous year's audits. Or not just for yours, but you can look at your neighbor districts around you. So I'm going to hit just briefly some of the big pieces of tier one training. This tier one training, Robin has done these in the past. Are you still doing them, Robin? I know you have in the past, because I've sat through some of your trainings before. So she's the expert on this. I'm just gonna hit some highlights. She's gonna assist with this. And this is something that the board normally wouldn't have to be aware of, but Dr. Ola had said that, hey, we wanna know what to look out for, the big pieces. So I took the tier one training and I pulled out some of the big pieces that you get hit for from time to time. We're only gonna go another 15 to 30 minutes here. We should be finished, be ready for questions. And that, we'll be here for as long as you need us during that. So once again, these are the tier one trainings. It's developed over the course of a year and a half. So they work that hard. So tier one training for next year is already started. Even though that we're just now in September and tier one training just got started, they're already getting ready for next year. There's input from numerous practitioners across the state. People are actually looking at the monies available on the Fiscal Services and Support page. These trainings are available on the ABE website. So anyone can look at this. And it has a lot of financial management principles within that. You can click on that and find some of those. So tier one training, there's two levels of training, tier one and tier two. Tier one is the superintendent and a person whose job responsibilities include preparing the budget or overall accounting responsibility. Rather than a district that's like a 687, does anyone besides the superintendent and the CFO go to that, or do you only have other people go to it?
Sometimes others will go that, some districts, they'll just send everybody to.
Yeah. So
That's what we decided to do after.
after this,
Yeah, so we, all of our directors and principals, assistant supes, we all went through.
I put that in the correct action. If it's not already there, I put that as a piece of it. That's awesome. That's really stepping up and saying, we're gonna fix this. Initial training of those two people or more must be a minimum of 12 hours. So it's a 2-day workshop usually when you do this. Yeah. Additional training may be required based on audit findings on our indicators of fiscal distress. Tier two, employees are involved in the process of recording and or reporting on financial transactions. School district trainers, if you're a district trainer for your district, you've got to attend the tier one. Training materials must be based on tier one material and focus on the specific needs of school district employees. So they do the trainings and then they've got a ton of resources that they hand the people who are going through the training. It's not just this PowerPoint, a lot of resources that go with it. Your general business manager, I like to call them CFOs, your chief financial officer. That's what we call them in the private world. It's the same thing in the public world. Must complete at least 5 CASBO, Certified Arkansas School Business Official. There's an organization through the Administrative Association that provides all of this. 5 courses per year and complete the 15 courses required within 3 years. So if you're a brand new employee, you come from the private sector, you're a recent college grad, you got 3 years to complete all of these courses. You must renew your certificate by completing at least 2 upper level CASBO courses per year after the date of certification. Now this is the business manager. I can tell you that some superintendents do this also. I did this years ago whenever I was a superintendent, just to have that certification. Failure to comply with rules concerning general business manager qualifications can be an indicator for fiscal distress. Procurement bidding. This is one of the big pieces that can get districts in trouble. The board of directors of each school district shall prescribe the method of soliciting bids and may adopt other rules governing the procurement of commodities. Now, there's laws that deal with commodities, and we're going to highlight some of those. It's already out there. Some districts go beyond what's required by law. That's why that statement is there. Districts may adopt state procurement procedures as a district policy, except where they conflict with Title VI. Purchase exceeding the purchase price in annotated code shall be procured by soliciting bids. So there's a ceiling that you don't have to have bids. Anything above that ceiling, and we're going to talk about those ceilings, you've got to have bids on those things. One other thing, If the law says, I'll use an extravagant number. Let's say that the law says $1 million. Everything over $1 million, you gotta have bids. But the district policy says everything over $10,000, you gotta have bids. They're gonna check to make sure that you adhere to your district policy. And it's not a bad thing to go below, because some districts might say, hey, we want to get bids on things that are above that. However, there's checks and balances and there's pros and cons. Usually if you're putting out for bid, in most cases, it's going to be the low bidder. And it can make it very political and very difficult instead of going with the preferred contractor. Open market purchases may be made when purchase price is less than the purchase price threshold. So you can purchase it whatever the district policy is or however you see fit if it's below that amount. And commodities means all supplies, goods, material, equipment, machinery, facilities, personal property, and services other than personal and professional services purchased for or on behalf of the school district. So they're talking now about public procurement bidding, and this is the definition of commodities. The following commodities may be purchased without soliciting bids. So there's no cap, there's no ceiling if you're going to purchase. If it's an unforeseen and unavoidable emergency, ACA, that's annotated code 621305, lists what that is and what you must do. If a building, heaven forbid, was to be blown away tomorrow, that's Shannon's nightmare that she lives. And then the first call is, Shannon, my building got blown away last night. What do I do? And she's going to guide you through that with the adjusters. But there's going to be times when that happens that you got an emergency. You can't wait to get a portable building in there. You can't wait to get emergency water in there. So in those emergency situations, that goes out the window, and now you go by bids. You don't have to go by bids. Utility services, you do not have to have bidding on that. Usually it's a one-stop. Where I live, I've got one energy company. It's interesting. I don't have a choice. So the school districts are the same way. Using that, I think it's 2 years or older, isn't it, Robin? Commodities available only from a single source. Purchasing official must determine in writing that it is not practical to use other than the required or designated commodity or service, and a copy of the statement shall be attached to the purchase order. When districts first started getting, I don't know if this would be a good example, but cyber insurance. That was a brand new thing. Where do we get that? There's only one company. How do we get bids if there's only one provider? Or the company that provides the widget, or whatever it may be. There's only one company, so how do we get bids? Because when you get bids, most of the time you're supposed to get at least 3 sealed bids. You can't get them because there's only one source, so those would be excluded. State procurement laws and rules can be found at that website. I'll make sure that's included. A school district, if you start looking at that, is a political subdivision. The Office of State Procurement has a contract administration best practices guide on the website, and you can go off and do statewide contracting. A statewide contract, they've already done the bidding for you through the state, and you can go from that contract and get like new school buses. They'll have that there and other things. Public schools may use a purchasing agreement established by another governmental entity. And they put this TIPS as an example there. That's the interlocal purchasing. It's cooperative purchasing, where they go and get prices for you, and then you can go to that and use preferred contractors or whatever commodity that they're putting out. For projects, major repairs, alterations, new building structures with an estimated cost of $50,000 or more, that's the ceiling. There are specific requirements including advertising, sealed bids, timelines for awarding bids, bid bond, performance bonds, and contractor licenses. So you can imagine, as a school member, you don't have time or inclination or training to have to go through and look at all that. You're going to have to rely on the people that are running the district as far as the day-to-day operations to be able to hand you that stuff. But you are still the one that's held responsible for that.
So if we hire like a building manager, like say Baldwin Shell, when we build a new building, we've already contracted with, or we know we want to use them as but they're doing the bidding process for us as our, I don't know what we call it.
As your general contractor.
General contractor. So
Or construction manager.
we did like, we had presentations when the district was first set up, and Navholz and Baldwin Shell and some others came, and, you know, we chose Baldwin Shell at that time, and now we built 5 or 6 buildings, whatever it is, and, you know, we've been happy with their services, so it's okay for us to just.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, well, that's a separate law that deals with when you're looking at construction manager, something of that nature.
Mhm.
Because they are then over the project and they're not gonna mess up. Because if they're only as good as the last job that they did, and they find out that Jacksonville, North Pulaski got audit issues because of what they did not get correct bids, they're toast. And I'm not saying they couldn't make mistakes, but I mean, that's why you usually don't have issues with that. You have anything further to say on contracts, construction managers, Robin, but what he just talked about?
Just make sure that they know the Arkansas procurement policies.
Is there a requirement for us every so many years or every so many projects where we have to reaffirm them as our construction manager?
Usually your policy, you can have it in your policy that, you know, after 3 years, you have to go out for a repeat bid, or it's really up to a district policy on that.
I don't know of one that has a certain limit that you can only do it for that much. And it may be a simple evaluation. It may be the board sitting around. We've had this company, have we had audit issues? Do we feel like we're getting a good price? That would be a review that you could do internally at a board meeting.
But I think the law actually says the board has the authority to set that time if you wanted to rebid or.
Seems like we had that discussion after the first 2 schools were finished, and we.
It's always good to look at options.
Discussion at 24 to finish these last.
Okay.
I'll say 2 things that are exactly opposite of each other. It's always good to look at options. Right? But my grandpa always said, don't fix something it's not broken. Because if they're doing a great job and they're doing a good service and things are good, why would you want to change? But it's always good to look, to evaluate. How well are they doing? You know, what our buildings, how many change orders have we had? What does it look like in the floor covers and the outside? What's the durability? All of that. I just hit a sore spot.
Did you read the article?
You didn't read the whole book.
Oh, man.
You aren't gonna get those floors buffed before that.
I never saw the
So
news report.
this is a tweak this last spring in the fiscal session. Public school construction, remember we said anything over 50,000 has to be bid out? Services procured by a public school district or open enrollment public charter school under a contract with a corresponding cooperative purchasing verification rate. That's like that TIPS we talked about. They do the bidding for you. For the making of repairs, alterations, erection, or other permanent improvements to a public building, property, or structure that do not exceed a total aggregate amount of $1 million for a public procurement unit in a fiscal year. So if you want to, you've got some projects that need to be done, up to $1 million, all of them combined, you don't have to do bids as long as you're going through a cooperative purchasing agreement. And that's been done with districts for many years. If you need to procure public construction services in excess of $1 million, that's what it's pointing out to, you can submit a request for a waiver to this committee at the Legislative Council. So we've already had districts that have been doing that because they want to stay with this contractor or the timeline won't do well for bidding. There's a venue out for that also here.
But we do have to send a construction plan. Am I correct?
Yes.
We have to send a construction plan to the Department of Education for them to review it and then give you the okay. And they may want specific specs, things like that. So they're not worried about your bidding, but they want to see what your construction plan is.
So that requirement doesn't go away. That's there for bidding or for non-bidding. They're going to make sure that you're spending taxpayer dollars. They're making sure that you're not putting a shack up over here and getting a good price, but it's not gonna work for the next 30 years. Good point. Competitive bidding shall not be used for the procurement of legal, financial advisory, architecture, engineering, construction management. There's a law. You don't have to bid that out. You review, you look at it, you can take RFPs, whatever, but you don't bid that out. And land survey. You shall not use competitive bidding for the procurement of other professional service with a 2/3 vote of its governing body. The Office of the State Procurement has published a memo on cooperative procurement for school districts, and that is listed there. School districts may purchase a new motor vehicle from a motor vehicle dealer if the purchase price does not exceed the fleet price awarded by the Office of State Procurement. So, let's say the state procurement has got on half-ton trucks, and here's the price, and let's say it's $50,000. And that's what this costs you if you go to the state procurement piece. If you've got a local dealer that says, I'll sell that same truck to you for $45,000, you can go get that truck without having to put it out for bids. Because it's below even what state procurement has bidded out. Sometimes districts have that. Sometimes dealerships want to say, they're driving my truck, but you gotta make sure and keep my decal on the back when you put, it says my dealership, when you put Jacksonville, Placer County, Public School District on the side. The Board of Directors of each school district shall prescribe the method of soliciting bids and may adopt other rules. The purchase of used school buses, we talked about already, in 2 years, if they're 2 years old, you don't have to have bidding on that. The threshold has been adjusted to $25,700, and additional requirements regarding the procurement of professional services is under that code. Federal procurement procedures. So now you got local, you got state, and you got federal. All federal expenditures must be allowable, reasonable, and essential to the success of the federal program. For ESEA federal purchases, if the per unit item is over $1,000, an email should be sent to the program advisor for pre-approval before purchasing. I can remember, help my memory on what exactly it was. Was it ESSER back in 2010, somewhere through there, where they had just come out? No, it was a stimulus funding.
All right, that's
It
all.
was ARA. They called it stimulus funding at that time when it first came out. And the general contractors were out there working under the state laws. These new monies coming in across the state. We had some general contractors that weren't keeping up with federal laws. So therefore, other things that were required under that stimulus funding, under the ARA, like documentation
Davis,
of what?
Davis.
Davis Bacon, yes, thank you. Davis Bacon, you had to do certain wage requirements, documentation, and districts everywhere were getting management letters because of that not being followed. Luckily for contractors and general contractors, it wasn't just one, they were nearly all of them were in that same boat together. Because it was something that come with it that they just weren't aware of.
Answer construction is the same way though.
Micro purchases. Micro purchases are purchase under $10,000. Do not require competitive bid, but require distributing purchases among qualified suppliers to the extent practical. I don't know what that is. But, the extent practical, how many are there out there? Try to get them all. What if you miss one? But do the best that you can of getting that out there. Rob, any comments on that?
I think really what they're wanting you to is kind of share the wealth.
Yeah, spread it out.
Spread it out.
Small purchases, $10,000 to $249,000, require price quotations from at least 2 qualified sources. There's a difference between a bid and a price quotation. This isn't just what's it going to cost. Purchases of $250,000 and greater require formal bidding procedures, sealed bids, competitive proposals, or single source supplier, which we talked about earlier. They're the only ones who can supply this. The state purchasing threshold for 24-25 is $25,700. The federal micro purchase threshold is $10,000. Supplies purchased with non-federal funds are required to use the purchasing threshold of $25,700 for obtaining bids, everything over that. Supplies purchased with federal funds are required to use the micro purchase threshold of $10,000 for obtaining quotes. Individual school district policies may set thresholds lower than required by law. If your district's policy is more restrictive, you must follow your district's policy. So let me give you some experiences in working with school districts over the last 15, 20 years. Someone comes out, they say, we're gonna get a new scoreboard. We're gonna get a new backstop for the girls softball, whatever it may be. It comes out there and what's it gonna cost? It's gonna cost $8,000. When everything gets done, you get back, well, it was $8,000, but here's another $4,000 for something that we forgot to leave off. You're already 6 months into construction, what do? You've gone above the $10,000 if you're doing it with federal funding, and you probably would be a softball field, it would be something else. But regardless, they're gonna put those things together. Everything on that project is gonna be pieced together. And you can get in some trouble with it. And you've done everything, you were told this is what it's gonna be, now it's amount above that. So, I mean, it's one of those things that is unfortunate, but once again, it's breaking the amount that is there.
And that happens a lot when you order, like you have ordered something, especially during COVID, when things were delayed for a long period of time, and it comes back as a different cost. So you just have to be very mindful of it to watch it.
So, and there's no gray area when it comes to legislative audit. There can't be, because if they work within gray area, some will say, I had favoritism shown. They're gonna follow it to the T. So when those things happen, they're gonna report it as an audit finding. You can have explanations, that's what that corrective action plan is for. There was a district that passed a bond the last 2 years. Sandy and I talked about this, if you remember. I'll tell you later because I don't like to build districts. They had passed a bond right before the COVID jump. Went to the papers, this is what it's gonna cost to build these buildings. COVID hit, the price of metal tripled. And what's a school building? It's either concrete usually or metal, and even this building will have tons of metal. And the truss work, there's not a lot of wood in the structure of it. They ended up having to come back to the public and go way down, scale down. The same amount of money the year that the bond was passed would have built everything. But it takes a while to mobilize, to go through everything. And they passed that like in February, March, COVID hits and everything shuts down. They can't even get anybody to come to the site because no one's allowed on the school grounds. You're sitting there for 3 months, 6 months, everything skyrockets. Those things happen. But auditors are going to look at that and they're going to say, we're sorry. This is what the law says. This is where you are. Districts are only exempt from paying taxes on items that are exempted by law. District pays use tax on items purchased from out-of-state vendor that does not charge tax on the invoice. Districts pay use tax for any transaction for which it was invoiced. Equipment required to make use of digital materials and software is exempt from sales tax. Split procurement. I call it bundling. No person official shall parcel or split any item or items with the intent or purpose to enable the purchase to be made under less restrictive procedures. And it's hard to tell what intent is. If you've got 3 playgrounds and you're going to build them all, is that one project or is that 3? If your intent is we want to use the same contract to do it all and really one big amount, then you're in trouble. If you're saying these are 3 separate ones, it's not going to be done all at the same time, so it's really 3 separate projects. My intent truly is, but someone else may look at that differently than the way you looked at it. but I call it bundling. That means, I make it real simple. You're gonna go out here, you're gonna build a bus shed. You're gonna have concrete, you're gonna have sheet metal, you're gonna have electrical, you're gonna have plumbing, you got heat and air. You can't treat each one of those vendors as a separate project. It's one building, and all of them count together for one total price, even if it's at different times. Corrective action plans, these are some things that we talked about. In tier one, Dr. O, it says provide a detailed plan corrective action. So I think what you guys are doing is right on target for that. Provide an anticipated completion date and specific reasons for disagreement if they're applicable. Prompt action is essential. Now this is from ADE. This is not the law. You know, the law said there it must be within 6 months. It's essential. ADE will determine if the corrective action plan for each finding is clear, specific, and could be reasonably expected to correct the underlying cause of the finding. ADE is going to be a help for you there before you have to go for the legislative audit in most cases. Recurrence of findings may involve significant federal funds that must be returned. Programmatic concerns or significant control weaknesses that could jeopardize receipt of federal funds in the future. They're not going to want you to get in trouble. So, because federal funds are a big part of your budget, and if you're doing things that the federal government say, whoa, you're out now, they're going to make sure that that's not going to happen to your district. Uniform guidance requires the auditee to include more detailed reasons for any recurring findings in the corrective action plan. So you get it 1 year, you have a corrective action plan, the same thing happened again. We can't put in the same corrective action plan. You're like, okay, we did not catch again. What are we going to do different in more detail? Yes, sir.
Dr. Purple, quick question. So the last audit that we received was 22-23.
Yes, sir.
So by the time we went through that audit, 23-24 had already occurred.
Yes, sir.
So we made the corrective measures, put in the detailed corrective action plan, but what about 23-24? If we've corrected it moving into this year, 24-25, but
The same thing happened earlier. in the year.
23-24, yeah.
I would say it's gonna be a repeat finding.
Probably is. If it was me, I would go back in those instances if you know that they're there, and I would put documentation there. This was on the 22-23 audit, which was issued in March. We've gone back now. We see this right here addressed in the corrective action plan, such and such, and I would put that piece there right there, showing that what you're seeing now, so that when the auditor gets it, okay, you gave me the audit last year. That's the first I knew of it. Here's the documentation that you've done. We're already doing this. This was before the time. I would have that there. So when you go in front of the legislative audit, they say, hey, you got a second finding. The auditor has the documentation shows that what's happening. But yeah, that's the problem with it being a year in arrears. The corrective action plan must be prepared by the school entity and not the auditor. The cap shall be received within 30 days of filing with the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. Common audit findings. We're not going to go into all of these. These are some of the same things that you saw before. This is through the tier training. School audit. A school district is prohibited from selecting an alternative basis of accounting for its annual school audit and instead mandates a regulatory basis of accounting audit. Does not prohibit a school district from using a private audit. So one of two things, you're either going to use private audit or you're going to use a legislative audit. You can't go out and get a third party of some sort. That's beyond what's required by law. Postdated warrants, lease purchase agreements, and installment contracts must be registered with the district treasurer and AD on forms provided or approved by ADE. There's the official website. If you prepay a registered short-term debt or deviates from the registered amortization schedule filed with the ADE, the district notified the ADE in writing or by email, the early payoff will provide the revised amortization schedule. Basically, you're going to have to show documentation that you're paying a debt off early. These next 2 or 3 slides show the ethical guidelines and prohibitions for administrators, employees, board members, and others. It starts with board members. This is the way that it came up on the tier training. My question is, do you need me to look at this and go into detail? Are y'all clear on this? Or do I need to?
I think we put some measures in place to make sure we cover all of this now.
Okay.
So,
So you know the amounts and numbers and everything that's there. I know you had told me that there were some issues with this when, and once again, this is the thing, you think you're doing everything correctly, but this law's in place, ooh, this happens, so. But you get it corrected, you're in good shape.
Yeah, and then when it's over 50,000, it has to go towards, or when it's over 10,000, it has to go toward ADE for approval.
That's correct.
After 8,000.
That's correct. And there's other things that talk about 5% financial interest. If you got 5% or more financial interest in a company, and then in a company or an entity that's doing contract with the district, so it wouldn't necessarily have to be at that 50. It could be a smaller amount, but you've got a personal investment. Your wife works for that company and owns a certain percentage, whatever it may be. So I've got all that there for you to look at. If you so desire, that's for board members. And it's got this, I love this slide, Ron. I don't know if you were one of the ones that helped create this or if it was us, but I love it says, if this is the case, you go to this. If not, read on, keep going on down. So really, really good format for you as board members, because you have to do those ethical disclosures. Look at this and see, anytime you have a question, refer back to that chart, and you can follow it right down to the T on where that is and what you should do. These are once again for board members. This is definition of superintendent or assistant superintendent or other individual directly responsible for entity-wide purchasing. So board members have ethical guidelines, and so do administrators. These once again are administrators. And these are then for employee conflicts of interest. And this is the resource guide that they have with all of the stuff. Once again, this is all available online that shows this. I'm not going to cover the other items of training unless there's something there, Rob, that you think I need to bring to their attention, or if there's something else that you want to look at this point. Okay?
Dr. Foster, the only thing I just wanted to mention about the ethics part is, making sure that anybody that has purchasing power in your district, that they're aware of, if they're, say, may want to contract with someone, and then also who's monitoring it, who's making sure that if you have a contract disclosure for $5,000, that you're not going over that amount in a fiscal year. So that's really important.
Okay, these are some trainings that we have. We always like to promote the trainings that we have going on. It's always good for board members to be at that. One thing that I'll say, if you've never been there, there's lots of national trainings, but every 3 years in Arkansas, we have a national conference that we've got states from all over. The 3 states that are the main players are us, Mississippi, and Louisiana. But we have people come from other states in the surrounding area, and it's always held in Hot Springs. Ours is 2 years from now, Janice. It's going to be in 26 is our next one, because we had it in 23. This year it was in Biloxi, Mississippi. Next year it's going to be at St. Charles, or Lake Charles. Always get that wrong. Lake Charles, Louisiana. But that's a drive-in conference that you don't have to take a lot of expense to go to, and there is so much good to be set by when you're sitting there. And someone from Louisiana is over here talking about this, Mississippi or North Dakota. This is what's going on. It's good to compare and come up with new ideas, thinking outside the box. Also, our annual conference is December 11th through the 13th. Widely attended. And the breakout sessions there are phenomenal. We have a professional development director, Tammy Ridger, and she has great. Your district has presented at some of those conferences and done a great job. We're appreciative of your participation. And you're going to get an hour and a half here tonight from what we did from 7 to 7:30. But if you need online professional development, it's always there. We always get the call December 18th, December 22nd. I've just looked, I'm 3 hours short. What do I do? We've got 30, 40 hours of online training that can be documented there. You have to get that training by December 31st. For new board members, it's 9 years in the first year and a half. For veterans who have done a year and a half already, it gone through your first year, it's 6 hours per year, for the rest, for as long as you're on the board. Board member, Shirley Garcia and David Petrell said, everything you do teaches a lesson away from the classroom. You watch your actions, we hear your words, and we're influenced positively or negatively. Guard your integrity like your most prized possession. It is. But I can tell you that statewide, this board and your administration here is viewed highly. And I wouldn't say that if it wasn't true. People have stood up and said, hey, they've got some good things going on there. So kudos to you for that. Any questions?
Appreciate y'all coming out and
Sure.
sharing with us and, thank you.
It was great that you started the meeting by calling the meeting to order and having a meeting. I can't tell you how many districts get in trouble because they treat a training like this as not a special meeting. Training is if you go off somewhere, you're not in the board meeting, but here, you're discussing district issues and things, so you always call it a special board meeting and notify it. So once again, very professional starting out.
Thanks, Dr. Parker. So we're gonna go straight into.
Yeah, we've got, Mr. Perry and Mr. Perry, your, Perry Benefits here to talk to us. Do we need to take a comfort break? We're good?
Here.
We can go, we don't have to wait on Bobby. I get you in trouble, though. That was not my intention. I'm sorry that, I didn't. I don't know why I took
It's like good stuff. You realize, you know.
Yeah. There was nothing
I'm
on you.
hoping I can use that now. I don't want to send them one at a time. So.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of where I was going. It's not just a chamber of commerce. This is an ex officio position on the board.
And I got,
Position is valued by the board members. Not
So,
just criminal stuff. I mean, like,
Like if
your
you're.
position, you are as well.
board members, I sent a video out, 2 days ago from, Mr. Representative Perry. If you all watched it,
I watched it.
he doesn't have to
We can
show
extra
it
credit?
tonight. So,
yeah, it eliminates 60 slides.
Oh,
If you watch.
so I think that's it.
I was.
Yeah.
And I did my homework, so I have to go. I went ahead and put it under today's. It's like the struggle. Did Jenny show you the cutest picture of the
Well, I
farm?
think that's it.
Okay, perfect.
I was thinking.
You're welcome.
No.
Look at this.
Ain't enough margarita.
There aren't any already left.
It was when we went to the open house at the high school.
Good, honey.
We didn't even have a pocket.
Always call.
We didn't know you was coming, did you? I mean, they're little. Here's a baby. For what grade? Yeah, we had to do it. And then it was like, that is Luke.
Hardly working.
Sometimes multiple Luke. Yeah. I know.
She also put it in.
Yeah, I hadn't even had coffee. I was pregnant for it. Because it was 5 years ago. Maybe 5. No, but I would have liked. I just forgot about it. I didn't even.
They've already.
I would say we can, watch it on our own if we have to watch it. I think 90% of us have watched it. Is that good, Miss Nina? So here's the slides of the video, is that correct?
That's it, you're right.
But it pretty much explained it, and I understood it after that, so.
Yeah, it was
It
informative.
makes a difference to watch the video. You have
Yeah,
to
it
watch
does. It helps to do your homework when you're given it.
Hey, you know what? I wasn't very good doing it at school either, so I'll throw that out there.
Greg is the best of the year.
Yes. Right. I apologize, though. I truly meant to go back and look at that and I failed.
We ready?
Thank you for being here with us,
Thank
Mr.
y'all.
Perry.
Sticking with us.
It's been a long afternoon for y'all, after school and work. Well, we appreciate the time. Of course, like I always said, I'm Mark Perry, Logan Perry. We're PNP Benefits Group here in Jacksonville. I presented some information to you at the last board meeting, which was kind of a high-level introductory. Since that time, sent some more information, came back today for the working, she called this a working board meeting. Fantastic. Well, what it is, it's, we do employee benefits, we do voluntary products, for groups of all sizes. And I participate in it's a advisors group and learn about new products and services throughout the country. And other states are implementing this program. And what it is, as far as we know, we're the only one offering it in Arkansas, and we're the only company that offers it. After looking at some of the requirements, I don't know where we can get another bid. I don't know where we can get another quote. It is a health and wellness plan that's provided for by tax efficiency. So there is a cost to it, but it's a net cost and actually a savings to the employee and to the district. And that's what the video will help explain some of that. And if we can get down into the weeds and explain a little bit more, but it's a Capstone is the program. It's offered a health and wellness program through Amaze. So Amaze, I don't know if I've showed any of y'all the Amaze app. So I'll give you a real life. We've used the Amaze app twice. And for those, I have health insurance, but this is over and above, doesn't interfere with any of your health insurance, doesn't affect it. Anything that you have, you keep. This is in addition to. We were in Cabo, the latest time I used Amaze. We were in Cabo at the end of June, end of July, 1st of August, and I have a granddaughter who's 1, and she swallows an earring. Not a little beady earring, but an open earring. Mom and dad are kind of freaking out.
Really more than mom, but yeah. I'm right.
Yeah.
I'm about to have to go
Daddy's little
negotiate
girl.
my x-ray.
And of course, we speak a high level of Spanish. Joking. See, about all I got. They were across the highway was a hospital. They said, hey, we can go over there, but that would have been challenging. And I said, let's call Amaze. So Amaze is a online virtual app.
Well, Amaze is an online virtual app. When COVID hit, everybody was familiar with Teledoc, right? Well, Amaze is English-speaking doctors. They answer on the third ring. So when we call Amaze, this lady gets on the phone and she pretty much inspects my daughter, makes sure she's okay. And she does it all right there within a matter of 2 minutes. And it cost us nothing. And if we had to have some services, I think they could have referred us out till we do it, but they do that. And she did a full inspection on her and she made sure she was eating and breathing okay. And I was just like, do what you got to do.
And what they do is
Did you ever find the earring?
Yeah, she passed it.
so you do all this with a video. And I'm actually looking at this and the lady, the nurse practitioner said, is she there with you? And so I turned the camera around and said, here she is. And she said, well, she told symptoms and so forth and said, you'll need to check her stool for the next 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 times. And I showed the camera to him. I said, there's the stool checker. And we got a laugh out of her. But they follow back up. And it still has my notes there. It says checking in on Mason, 7:29. And then it actually goes back to our whole conversation from 7:28 to 7:29. So that all transpires.
And in your packet, it talks more about it, but it does biometric facial scanner. Like it's got an app you can put up there. It'll tell you your blood pressure, oxygen level, all that. And they're still rolling out more stuff on it. But the whole feature behind the health and wellness plan is some employees, not just in the school district, but other groups that we do, they're fighting, life is rough. primary care copays, specialist copays, and a lot of your employees go to a doctor mostly for a prescription refill. And that costs them money to go, and sometimes they can't take off work, and sometimes they can't afford the prescription. And they can use this app, it costs them nothing, and they have 79 prescriptions, we're getting ready to roll out over 200 prescriptions that are all generic, that will not cost the employees nothing. And they still report the information shared to a primary care doctor. So it's not like they're abandoning their specialist or primary care doctor, it's just providing them an alternative where they don't necessarily have to go in, take off work, and pay a copay.
Another level of care.
Another level of care, and it's even got we've done more on Amaze training lately. They even have a feature, if you're driving to the emergency room, call Amaze first. If you're going to, call Amaze first. Sometimes people go to emergency room as their primary care doctor, costs a lot of money, and they have geofencing even, where if you have the app, if you're in the emergency room and your location is shared, it'll ping them, and Amaze will actually try to call them like, hey, we see you're in ER or something we can do to maybe limit your costs that you're about to spend in the ER. Now if it's a true emergency, they're going to advise them to stay in. But that's just some of the things. That's the health and wellness plan is the feature, but the whole thing behind it is taxing.
Are the school board members that qualify, or do we have to have insurance in the district?
We could probably get you that.
We would probably, owners, that's a really good question. Owners of a company are not eligible, but to participate,
Amazing.
but they get the Amaze app. So I guarantee you, we could get the school board to do that.
So the Amaze is, when we've been presenting to groups and implementing it in the groups, kind of overlook the Amaze just because we're doing it for the Amaze, but we're really doing it for the tax savings that we're going to bring a business, or in this case, the school district, right? But the Amaze is so much more than that. I mean, when your employees figure out what it is, they'll like it. I mean, we've used it twice, and I never thought we would. But are any of y'all familiar with how Section 125 works? I mean, y'all offer Section 125 now. I know probably Dr. O is. It's pre-tax deductions, and that's what this is ran on. So it ran on a pre-tax deduction plan. And how we're coming up with it, in your packet, you'll see examples of payroll checks. So they take out, depending on what your employees, it's all income based. So you've got some high level earners, your medium earners, lower level earners. Depending on what level of income they're at, depends on what plan you put them in. We have software that figures out what puts them in. Because this Capstone Amaze plan comes with a hospital indemnity plan. It really no cost to the employee. What a hospital indemnity plan does is the employee goes to the hospital, they get cash reimbursement back for going in for different procedures that, different things that are happening in the hospital. And so whatever plan that they're on, that's the pre-tax premium that's coming out of their check. And then for being in the program, they get is it weekly or monthly? Is it weekly or monthly newsletter? Monthly. The monthly newsletter, either by email, or if you're, we have a lot of blue collar industries don't have email, they'll get a newsletter mailed to their house, and that qualifies them for a claim reimbursement on the after tax side. Okay.
On this page right here, it says Capstone Plus Hospital Indemnity. Those are the qualifying things that allow you to get a claim reimbursement.
So what it's doing, but pre-tax plans, lower the taxable income. But what we're doing is we're giving them a claim reimbursement on the back end. So essentially, we're going to increase your employee's take-home pay. Okay, and the IRS has ruled that just like a hospital indemnity plan, if the employee gets cash payments for services, like for reimbursement, that money is not taxable. They can be used for mortgage, rent, groceries, whatever you want to be used for. So, and then that's in there. And then this sheet right here is just a quick quote, has the site logo on it. It shows you just a rough average, just a quick quote, high level of what the approximate savings yearly would be to the school district. And that's based off 600 employees, and that we can get a more accurate number on that.
And actually, so it says 558. What we do is we always think about a 90% participation. There'll be some people that don't want to participate or don't qualify. So 558 take the average savings, it would save the district roughly $290,000.
That's just the
And
difference.
that, and the way that's saved, and we can get down more into the weeds and show you, it's basically on your finance.
So how long does something like this take to implement?
Group this size, there's a process with the group this size. We would do what, if you agreed to like move forward, not implementing, just the next steps, we would do a payroll extraction. What a payroll extraction is, takes all the payroll data, and we would put together a pro forma. What a pro forma is, it's a more detailed quote showing everybody's paycheck and showing you what the actual savings would be to that employee and to the district. And then from there,
Detailed point of view.
yeah,
For each person.
for every employee, yeah. And then after that,
There's no cost to the district to move to the next step.
and then after that,
Time, the HR and payroll, a little bit of time on that.
but yeah, and just depending on what payroll software there is, there's quick, easy buttons that we can get them to hit, and it'll payroll extract it. If y'all are using your own thing, your own system, your own software,
They did
groups
this
you work with can build a.
They did it for a
census.
25,000 employee Amazon delivery.
Are there any other school districts implementing this?
In Arkansas, there's 2 or 3 that we're talking to, looking at it, not
In Mississippi,
Mississippi has some,
Missouri.
yeah, Missouri, in fact, got a former superintendent that he works in Missouri.
We
So what kind of information are you extracting? You're not extracting personal information like social security numbers?
no,
You just,
it's just information. Typically, what they'll want to know is you'll have an employee name.
He's actually done it, so he knows
Yeah.
what they're asking.
But a lot of times you can, void that out, but they're gonna wanna know a last name so they can reference that employee, and they're gonna wanna know their federal withholdings. Because that's what is gonna determine whether, they're single, joint. They wanna look at that. It'll determine, and it'll also show all the other deductions that they have,
Because it determines what plan they
what
fall,
level they're in.
what level. So
is there a number that has to participate in it?
No.
Okay.
They can opt out. It is an auto enroll, so if you do, if we move forward and say, after it all looks good, information is sent to every employee that's saying, hey, we're implementing a MAID's Health and Wellness Program, shows what it would do. If they decide to opt out, you opt out. As long as they stay in the program, they'll be given the link for the app, will be showing what transpired in the benefit.
And we can work with whoever to do education, because the biggest thing is educating employees. We do them in groups now, we have to educate them, because they're gonna, when you start messing with people's paychecks, when they get a paycheck and they see a deduction, but they don't really realize on the back and they got an increase in pay, they're just gonna see that deduction. And that's gonna be a red flag unless we do the education up front.
So this is a health and wellness program. What about those people that are sicker than other folks? Is it penalize them in any way?
No, sir.
No, actually a benefit for them. They, we see a lot of companies going to higher deductible, higher copayments. And when you can pick up the phone and renew a prescription, talk to a doctor right here, in the comfort of your kitchen or living room, it may not cost you a dime. They're looking at, I don't want to go pay that $40 office copay to go renew some of the prescriptions. Or I think I have a rash. I mean, you'd be amazed at things they can do. I've actually done strep throat before.
Some
They
of
can do dental. I don't know how they do it. I haven't had a dental
that's
issue.
my next question. How do they do it?
Yeah.
With money?
I tell you what, I have never been so impressed. For the 2 times I've used the maids, they said, oh, they ain't sure to get $3. And I'm like, yeah, right. They probably speak Chinese. Call the call center. They don't speak English. This is English speaking, and there were doctors, they answered $3.
Well, and during COVID, all of our companies we represent, they all were coming out with their own version of telehealth. United Healthcare had theirs. They all have one. It was a nightmare messing with it. But we personally have used the MAID's twice, and it's been.
It sounds to me like we're mining tax code to get benefits and refunds to maximize what's available to us. And that's what the program does. It's just,
Based on the law.
yeah, it's all legal. They're just mining the tax data to refund and
And
for each employee.
We have implemented some groups, I will tell you, we've actually done our own company. We own a funeral home, we did our funeral home just as a test, guinea pig, let's see what happens. And it's legit, our employees, on average, they're paid, every bi-weekly, and they got an average of $75 increase in home per paycheck.
I mean, it sounds like a no-brainer to me, but I mean, I know we can't vote on anything tonight, but I would say between now and the next school board meeting, if you guys want to look at it further, just to move forward on implementing it, if you're comfortable with it. And I'm personally comfortable with it.
Watch the video.
Yeah. Watch the video.
The video's really
Video
good.
really
Video
helped
really
explain
breaks it
it.
down.
And Logan did an outstanding job.
But I'm not the guy with the video.
I mean, Mark did okay, but Logan, you did awesome.
Well, I've personally done I set up all the payroll codes at the funeral home. You don't have 600, we have 15. But I did it all, and I watched how it worked, and so I've got a hands-on feel how it worked. Like I said, the education, if we get to that point down the road, education to employees will be the biggest thing. Because they're gonna see the deduction, they'll be honest, they'll flip out if they don't know what it is.
If they don't know ahead of time.
Right.
So this is something that the employees would opt into and, right.
Typically, what we do on a large one like this, it'd be an auto enroll, okay? And we would auto enroll everybody that have positive savings. So if you got an employee, when we do the employee by employee breakdown on the pro forma, it'll tell us all the ones that are negative savings that did not qualify. They're automatically, we're not enrolling them because we're not gonna give anybody negative savings. But all the people that are positive savings, it'll be an auto enroll. And then from there, you'll have a couple. I'll tell you one of the biggest things you might get is you get an employee that's a little older, that they'll say, this is really messing with my social security, because we're lowering their social security. And we have a way to explain that to them. We can say, hey, with the money that we're saving, let us take half of that money, let us put it in a non-qualified retirement plan that's gonna be there in case social security isn't, because that's always the myth, social security is gonna be there when we need it. We don't know. So we ran into that on a couple of our groups. Yeah. So the big thing with social security.
So they would be automatically enrolled and they would have to opt out.
But they can opt out anytime.
No one's gonna opt out unless they don't understand it, because we're increasing their take-home pay.
Right.
But like I said, some people you just can't explain it to them. So
I mean, it sounds like a good thing. I guess my question would be like, what is the regulations about us giving personal information from employees?
Well, we would definitely need to double check that, but it's not the payroll information. If it's the amount, that's already posted. That's public info, and that's under the state required information, all the contracts with the staff name and the amount. So.
yeah.
But as long as we don't give personal identification, like social security numbers,
They don't
those-
And what I could do too, I could ask them because I know like on our census, we were doing it, we sent it all in, but I could ask them what information they would need. Other than a full census, can you get by with this, certain document? I'll find that out for you.
Because the company that does this is part of Capstone, and they're a huge third-party administrator, TPA. And so that what they do is they have software. In fact, it's
You
called
know what
Capital
payroll
Work.
software y'all use?
we use e-finance
Is that on there? They might-
with Power School.
We find out they have like
E-finance.
integration with certain ones. If it works, if not, they just build a custom one. They be sending upload. We'll take their people.
We use the same, I think most of the school districts utilize the same. We use open e-finance, which is Power School in the state.
But I'll find out that information because there's not any cost or anything just to see the breakdown. That will give us the true savings of what it would be to the school district.
How would y'all go about educating the teachers and staff? Would you go school by school and have like a
I feel like that's
work session?
I really feel like this size, the best way with us being local, would be a boots on the ground approach. I don't know how y'all communicate benefits now, but I feel like more people would get educated more if we went to each,
That's
the
how we do it.
bus
Actually-
depot or.
So there's a webinar you can watch on the MAIS, and they'll actually do lunch and learn.
Well, and I feel like if we get to that point, they have is it 30 minutes? It's not, it's 30 minutes, I promise you, it's only 30 minutes of a
That's what the last guy said.
No, I'm not a presentation of a maze. It would really give you a feel.
We're only here 15 minutes and 30 minutes longer.
It really would give you a feel of what a maze does. That way y'all would understand it because we're giving you just a breakdown. But when I watched the maze, I went, well, I didn't realize they could do all that.
I think even that, how was the one you emailed us? Just that little bit of video was
Yeah.
informative enough that it was intriguing to learn more
Yeah,
about.
that's on the whole program, but the Amaze 30-minute one, just on all that Amaze will do,
Yeah.
it's cool. I mean, like, a lot of people go to their doctor and have blood work. Give you an example, I mean, I go every 6 months for blood work, I'm above 30 now, so I do that. And then, you can use Amaze as a doctor, like next time, I mean, I have a good relationship with my doctor, but I'm probably gonna use Amaze, they'll like shop around for the best places that will do my blood work. I'll go do my blood, they'll send it to the doctor I'm working with for the Amaze. They'll do it all, it won't cost me nothing. And I only have to go get blood, that's all. So. But anyway. But let me find out the information, because all it would be is, we would just need like the name of the, we know the name of the district. There might be a couple of, not personal information, but just about the school district. And then I'll figure out the information and we can take it from there.
And you did say that if you talk to a doctor and do all your whatever to get prescriptions, do they communicate that with your, okay, I thought you said that, but
They'll share
I
that.
think I was coughing at that point in time.
There you go, yeah, that's a big piece of it, but they follow up, I mean, they truly, like, they message us the day after, the 2 days after, hey, everything's still good, okay, and I was just amazed.
Well, thank y'all for coming.
Yeah, thank you, good information.
Now make a motion, we adjourn.
I got 50 more slides, thanks.
Alright,
Denied.
so we present this
Yeah.
to the mayor for like city employees.
Already in the pipeline.